Hey guys, and welcome. God of War Ragnarok has been out for almost 2 months now, and still there are so many unanswered questions that we need answers to. One of them being why Atreus had to leave at the end of God of War Ragnarok. Eric Williams mentioned on one of IGN's spoiler casts that 3 things had to happen in God of War Ragnarok. Number 1 being that Ragnarok of course had to happen. Number 2, the kid had to leave, referring to Atreus. And 3, Brock had to die. Don't believe me? Well, here it is from Eric Williams himself.
And then at that moment, he gave me like 3 things that had to be done. And I said, okay. And I said, what are the 3 things? He's like, well, Ragnarok's gonna happen, the kid's gotta leave, and Brock's gotta die. And I said, okay. And he goes, do you know why Brock needs to die? And I said, yeah, I remember we talked about this a long time ago, that he's the family dog. And so that's why. And he said, yep. And then that was it, pretty much. Like, and then the rest of the time was like me just checking in with him, like, we're gonna do this. How do you feel about it? And he's like, that's good to go.
So you bookended the entire game with the deaths of family dogs.
Pretty much.
It's not really a fan favorite approach, but sure, go off.
So we've covered the story and explained that in full detail. Links below if you want to check that out. We've also discussed and spoken about Brock's death and how that impacted Sindri as well. Again, links below. But we haven't yet spoken about why Atreus had to leave at the end of God of War Ragnarok. I've seen this a lot in my comments. A lot of people seem to have mixed opinions and views as to why he had to leave. Will he ever come back? What was the purpose of him having to go on his own? And for Kratos to stay back in Midgard with the likes of Freya and Mimir to do their own tasks. Well, today we're going to do exactly that and discuss it completely on why Atreus needed to go on his own and why Kratos just couldn't go with him. But leave a like on today's video, everyone. That would be very much appreciated. Consider subscribing to the channel as well for more story-based content coming to the channel as often as possible. If you're a new, returning viewer, it'd be very much appreciated. We're trying to hit 20,000 subscribers before the end of the year. We are like 150 away at this point. It's crazy. And if any help can be given to get towards that goal, it would be amazing. But without further ado, everyone, let's dive straight in. First of all, let's recap the events of God of War Ragnarok, and ultimately, what gave Atreus that motivation to want to leave and do this on his own, or in this case, need to leave and do it on his own. Check the timestamps below and skip to whichever parts of the video you'd like to, but let's get straight into it. It all starts at the beginning of Ragnarok, when we find out that Atreus is holding some form of marble and can see that the developers are putting emphasis on this section, hiding it away from Kratos at the beginning of the game, with of course us not knowing why. However, moving even further back towards the end of the first game, Atreus finds out that he's a giant, and so was his mother Faye. Kratos nor Atreus had any idea of this, so to seek answers he decided to search for the closest thing to the giants to maybe find out if he knows what the prophecy might be, or just find out more about himself, the person all over the tales of Midgard, and potential peace between the 9 realms. This was the god of war, Tyr. Before the events of Ragnarok, Atreus was searching for Tyr, trying to find out where he might be held or if he was still alive. He never told Kratos that he was doing this, as Kratos is very overly protective and would probably want to join him to the hip on this journey and not let him out of his sight throughout, so Atreus thought that it would be best to try and search for them himself. Atreus would come across and search for multiple shrines across Midgard, and he came across one in particular which actually opened when he touched it, and inside revealed that Tyr was imprisoned somewhere in one of the 9 realms, but it didn't give away as to where. However, within this shrine, Atreus also finds this marble that he was holding at the beginning of the game, intrigued by it, so he picked it up and kept it by his side ever since. Now fast forwarding on later into the game, Atreus falls asleep, and as he does, he grasps the marble hard in both hands and mutters, Ironwood. Ironwood was the location that Jormungandr mentioned when Atreus and Sindri visited him at the beginning of Ragnarok, with Mimir mentioning later on that this is a fictional place and that it does not exist. However, when Atreus mutters Ironwood in his sleep whilst holding this marble, he suddenly wakes up somewhere unexpected, Jotunheim. Atreus then moves forward and meets a girl named Angrboda. It turns out that Ironwood was in fact a real place, but it was never discussed outside of Jotunheim or outside of the giant circle, due to the fear that Odin might find it, enter and of course take over and kill all the giants within Jotunheim. Angrboda's destiny was to deliver Atreus, or Loki as the giants known him by, his destiny. And fast forwarding slightly, this is where Atreus finds the missing piece to his shrine within the Jotunheim temple above the 3 peaks, where his father dies and where Atreus, or Loki, joins forces with Odin. However, this is where we get into the more juicy stuff. Angrboda takes Atreus to a place in Jotunheim just outside of Ironwood, where she hands him a bag within a rock. Within this bag, it contains more of these marbles, the same one that was found in the shrine that Atreus went to at the beginning of the game. Atreus mentions this to Angrboda, that he's also found one of these marbles within a shrine, in which she seems very, very surprised. Angrboda tells Atreus that these are not left behind by the giants, but these are in fact the giants. The giants decided a long time ago that rather than running and hiding in fear from Odin, it was here that of course they found peace and they could finally rest and not live in fear every day that Odin might turn up any second and kill them all. Angrboda's parents had left the marbles behind and given them to Angrboda to eventually give to Loki when he turns up and comes to Ironwood, as they knew that the prophecy stated that he would know exactly what to do with them when the time came. The first thing Atreus tries to do with the bag of souls would be to transfer one into a snake. It turns out that Angrboda's grandmother would capture animals and take their souls so that she could live their greatest memories and moments, taking away the grieving nature of her son being killed. It was here that Atreus found the snake and transferred a giant's soul into it. However, Angrboda mentions when we meet her a little bit further into the game that it turns out that this snake that we transferred this giant's soul into was growing drastically in size, being one of the last remaining giants. This snake turns out to be Jormungandr, the world serpent, the one that we spoke to at the beginning of the first game. Fast forwarding to the end of the game, Atreus mentions to Kratos that he knows what he must do, and that's free the rest of the giants. The bag given to him by Angrboda was full of giant souls, in which he wanted to set them all free. Atreus was the reason for the birth of Jormungandr and countless other giants around the Nine Realms as well. His journey had to be done alone, travelling to Ironwood and Jotunheim and populating the realms with giant souls, bringing them all back now that Odin has finally gone. As ultimately, that was the main reason they all hidden away, right? So, why did Atreus have to leave? Why was Santa Monica so set on him needing to leave the nest and venture off into the existing 8 realms to fulfill his prophecy of freeing the giants? Well, Atreus was nurtured by Kratos from the very beginning, right? Also with the likes of Faye and even the surrounding cast from the second they all met. Freya in the first game, for example, Mimir throughout as well, giving Atreus the knowledge of all the realms and the stories throughout. Atreus is generally a very ambitious kid. He always had a lot of potential, and his mother Faye knew exactly that. Hence the reason why the prophecy was changed by Faye in the end, to have Kratos not die and then replace him with Odin. Why Kratos was the new God of War in replacement of Tyr in the final prophecy, and him and Atreus changing the existing prophecy and making it their own. Faye gave a lot of responsibility to Atreus in the end, and I don't really think Kratos throughout the story could come to grips with that. She knew the difficulties that Atreus would have with this and the responsibility that Atreus would have in the end, but I believe she knew that over time Kratos would feel as though he needed to open up to Atreus, to eventually unclip that parenting and protective lead from his collar and let Atreus go out and explore on his own, which is exactly what he finally did towards the end. And I felt like all of their difficulties throughout the first game and difficulties throughout the second game, them learning to trust each other, played such a big part in this, and it's a really amazing thing to dive into detail around this as well. And as a parent or as someone that has someone you care about, when they're going off to do something that you're a bit worried about, that's where you can really see Kratos' protective side comes out, and at the end of the game where he just goes, okay, I trust you, go do what you need to do. It's a massive weight lifted off Atreus' shoulders, and you can see that here when he looks back at Kratos before he takes step on the mountain and goes off to do his thing. The thing is, this prophecy was a massive responsibility for Atreus, which was placed upon him by the giants themselves. Their entire species was in the hands of this 14-year-old kid Atreus, so ultimately he's got a lot to live up for here. The giants' initial goal for Atreus was to find Tyr, defeat Odin, and destroy Asgard with Ragnarok, and then of course Angrboda and Ironwood, telling Atreus that these are the marbles and that these were meant to be given to him and passed down from generations, that now the lives of these giants within these marbles are in Atreus' hands, and that apparently he would know what to do with them when the time is right. Atreus is a 14-year-old kid, bearing in mind, that has the souls of these giants, the last giants of Jotunheim, in his hands. Like, this is the responsibility that he had here, and just looking at it from taking a step back and seeing exactly the power that he had, and if he messed up at any point, what could happen, you can kind of see why he was so frustrated throughout the story here. It wasn't until Atreus started to go to these shrines at the very start of the game when he would find these marbles scattered throughout, which is when he later realizes within Jotunheim, when with Angrboda, that these are in fact the giant souls within these marbles, and they're not from the giants or created by them, and these were what the giants used in order to hide themselves from Odin, to prevent them from being killed and essentially having genocidal acts performed upon their species. However, after the prophecy was completed, Odin was then dead, meaning that these giants didn't need to hide away anymore. They can come out and be free again and have their souls implanted within something, some being, someone, whoever that might be, without the need of needing to run again. They don't need to run in fear or in fear of being killed, or the fear that their species will have any genocidal acts cast upon them. The giants are free again. The reason Atreus had to leave at the end of the game was because he believes that there are more of these giants scattered around the realms than what Angrboda gave him in this bag. He found one at the very beginning of the game before knowing what they were, and he kept it ever since, and that was the way that he got into Ironwood. Then Angrboda hands him this bag of marbles, and then tells him that these are the giant souls. Of course, they then passes them into the likes of Jormungandr, and there was a soul inside of his knife which he puts inside of Garm, turning into Fenrir. There will be so many more of these marbles scattered around these different shrines. How they got there, I don't think we'll ever know that. But the fact is that there's going to be so many more of these around, not just this bag, there could be more of these bags somewhere in Jotunheim. There could be loads of different giants in these marbles scattered around the realm of Jotunheim, and we just don't know it. So, the task is for Atreus to finish what had started, with a plan to go full circle, bringing all of the giants back in animal form, like we'd seen with Jormungandr or Garm and Fenrir, or in human form if their bodies were preserved or found in any way. To not have them as a story or a tale anymore, to bring their species to the forefront and let them live and thrive along the others of the other existing 8 realms, because it would be exactly what Faye would have wanted, and to get back at Odin and the Aesir. The ending of God of War Ragnarok shows Atreus go off and do exactly this, which is what I think the next game will reference in some way or other. Jotunheim will again be populated in some way, and maybe in the next game we'll be able to go back to these realms in some way, maybe for a mission or two, just to go to see the giants or wherever that might be, with these giants being brought out of hiding, and allow them to live the life that they wanted to, without the fear that Odin can find them. But guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Atreus had to leave to bring the giants back, to fulfill exactly what his mother wanted, and ultimately to fulfill his own prophecy of being the saviour of the giants. And that is what Atreus needed to do, and that's why he went away and did it. I'm really looking forward to the next God of War game, the next story of where it could be. Again, a new mythology should be taking place, whether that will be Celtic, whether that will be Chinese, Japanese, maybe even Egyptian. We don't know just yet. But I do think that there will be references to this game and the 2018 God of War game in that new one. So I wouldn't just think that because of a new mythology that there won't be any references to the old one. I feel like we're going to go back to Jotunheim in some way, because it played a pivotal part in the story. See the giants, see how Atreus did it, maybe even learn of it, maybe even go back and play in some of those sections, which would be more than possible to do. And maybe even tie into who blew that damn horn in the first game. We'll have to wait and see, everyone. But I hope you have enjoyed today's video, everyone. It'd be very much appreciated if you could leave a like if you have. Subscribe if you guys are brand new as well. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers, and I'm very much looking forward to hitting that. I think we're pretty close to doing that, and I'd be very surprised if we didn't at this rate. But any help would be very much appreciated. But I hope you've enjoyed. We'll see everyone next time.